Welcome to this special episode of On Target. I say special episode because this time we're going to be doing an open Q&A with me from some of the key questions that I've been asked over the years from the community. I've compiled them all up. Some are a little bit more personal, some are more so focused on my career and on the professional side of the house. Let's not waste any more time. I'm going to read out the question and then I'm going to freestyle my answer. So this should be fun. First question is, can you share a brief overview of your career trajectory in SaaS sales? Yes, absolutely. Now, my sales career started 12 years ago now when I wasn't actually in SaaS from day one. I was in hardware selling printers and copiers. And then within my third year, I transitioned into SaaS sales. So now coming up to about 10 years dedicated in software. The very first piece of software that I sold was for schools predominantly. Actually, it was an auditing type of software and a visitor and access management system that I would sell into schools, really so that they could keep a strong health and safety track of the people who were in their buildings, where they were located, and this was needed for compliance. So it was pretty interesting. I then moved into IT service management, so the type of software that powers customer service teams and more. And then I eventually transitioned into customer experience, or what we call CX software. And that's really where I've spent the mass majority of my career at companies like Twilio, Amazon Web Services, and where I am currently today at Braze, where all of those companies are much more focused around customer experience, marketing automation, and that type of space. So I've had a great time, as I say, spent most of my time in the CX arena, and that's where I built most of my domain expertise. But throughout my career, having really been able to touch multiple different companies and industries and sectors, I've really got what I'd call is diversity of perspective, where I've been able to see a lot of different movies, and that's been incredibly valuable in my career today, now where I'm leading a fairly sizable team and need to draw on all of those rich experiences over the years to help me to be as effective as possible for my team. The next question is, what initially drew you to the SaaS sales industry? I'll first of all just touch on what drew me into sales specifically, and then I'll get onto the SaaS component of that. So I chose a sales career for a couple of reasons. One is the fact that I wanted more control and ownership around my performance and my success and any failures and lessons and learnings in life. I didn't like the thought of being in what I would describe as a pretty mundane job that's very samey, with the same kind of earnings, the same scope of work, and limited control as to what would dictate whether I've been a great performer or whether I'm just meeting the status quo. So I felt that by being in sales, I'd have more control over my earnings, my destiny. I knew that I would stack rank on a leaderboard, and by being the best, that would put me in an optimal position to secure promotions and be able to climb through the ranks and things of that nature. As some of you will know, I gave up a full scholarship studying corporate law to start my sales career. So I left a lot on the table, made a big sacrifice, and really had to put myself in a position where I, quote unquote, risked it all to be able to go out there and build a successful career over time. Now, why did I then transition into SaaS? It's really because I could see that software was innovating the future. So when I made that transition circa 10 years ago, I could see that this is a space that was going to dictate and define how the world would go on and operate over the years. You could see the innovation from companies like Microsoft and companies like Apple, Facebook, and all of these other social networking type of platforms. And I could see that the way that the world was moving, software and SaaS would be the thing that was really innovating for the future. And I wanted to always be at the cutting edge, make sure that was a part of a space that would be underpinning the way the world would continue to grow and evolve in the future. So that's why I chose SaaS. One of the best decisions I've ever made in my life, and I will be here for a very long time in some capacity or another. Next question, how would you describe your sales philosophy or approach? Now, anyone who's either worked as a part of my team or knows me knows that I have very high standards of excellence. I have those standards for myself. I expect them also of my team. As much as I appreciate that everyone is different, everyone has nuance, a lot of my job is about trying to understand someone's personal and professional goals and then leaning into that to help them realize their best possible version of themselves. So my sales philosophy starts with having standards of excellence that help people to outperform themselves every single day. Another aspect of it is, as I describe it, sweating the details. So it's really getting into the weeds with your customers, asking what I call level 3 questions, really seeking to understand before you then try and prescribe. So it's really about getting into the detail. The third aspect is really to systemize your go-to-market approach. So I'm always very maniacal about someone being thoughtful to say, if I put in X inputs, I'm going to then get Y output. So part of my philosophy is to try and create a system and know your data and do your maths so that you can drive more predictable and repeatable success over time versus quote unquote trying to wing it or figure it out as you go through. Next question. Can you share a challenging sales situation that you faced and how you've overcome it? That's an interesting one. I'll probably say when I think back to a time where I missed target many years ago as a salesperson, because of those standards of excellence that I've just spoken about and my own demand on myself for excellence at any given time. When I missed target many, many years ago, the feeling that I had was just the deepest sinking feeling. I hated it. I couldn't stand it. I was struggling to look at myself in the mirror and I said, Alex, I never want to feel like this again. I don't want to miss plan. How do I figure this out? And at that stage in my career, I was really running on raw emotion and really just running at things at such a high pace, putting in so many hours that I was always finding my way to target. But what I didn't have is any system. I hadn't done the maths. I didn't do the work to say, how can I be more efficient? How can I understand that if I do these things on a given day and I do this amount of it, it's going to give me this output? I didn't do that work. So the moment I missed target is because I was just solely reliant on my pace and my work ethic, and that wasn't enough. And then the moment that I took a step back, started doing the maths, figuring out the data, working and leaning on more logic versus raw emotion and pace and tenacity, I brought those two worlds together. And then that put me in a position where I never then missed target again. I was able to continue to excel as a salesperson, won many different awards, many different accolades, and built a pretty historic career over my run as an individual contributor. Next question. How do you build and maintain relationships with your customers? So again, this takes me back to being an individual contributor. One of my biggest focuses when I was speaking to customers was I was always obsessive around a couple of areas. One is their pain points, their challenges, the things that kept them up at night, the things that blocked them from being able to achieve their own goals and their own version of success. And the second thing was thinking through, how can I drive transformation within this organization? How can I look at their current state and then look at their future state and be the person, be the prescription that can take them from where they are right now to where they need to be to unlock their own version of success. And when you really, truly focus on those two areas, it's incredible the types of relationships that you can build for your customers and the types of relationships that you can maintain, because your customers truly see you as a strategic advisor. They truly see you as that person who's really, truly invested in their success, really wants to understand where they are. And then it helps to put you in a position where you're seen as that person that can take them from where they are to a transformative future state that no one else can compete with. And so I used to really obsess around that. And I think my customers could always see the passion that I had for that. And it's meant that many of those relationships I still sustain today. And I'm still in contact with a lot of my most prolific customers. And that gives me a really nice, warm feeling inside. Next question is, what is the one book, blog, or podcast you would recommend to anyone in SaaS sales and why? I'm going to say something a bit different here that some of you may not expect. I'm actually going to say it's the Little Book of Stoicism by Jonas, I believe his surname Steitzberger or something of that nature. But if you just search the book title, you'll find him. Now, Stoicism has been a critical part of my ability to be resilient and to sustain and endure over such an extensive career. I've spoken before about back in 2017 hitting burnout and then having never burnt out or come close to it since. And a lot of that has been based on Stoic principles that I've truly invested in over recent years. I'm not going to spend all of this time talking to Stoic principles. Quick Google searches or YouTube searches and searches on my personal YouTube channel. Just search Alex Elaine Stoicism. I've done several different videos on the topic. It's got a real focus on the things that you can control in life. And when you only focus on the things that you can control and you rewire your mindset around the things that you can't control and you don't obsess over those things, it's incredible how it reframes the way that you're able to approach your work every single day. So if you're not already, get the book and also lean into Stoicism, one of the best things that you can do. Next question, can you provide any advice for someone who's aspiring to get into SaaS sales? Absolutely. First thing is to go through a program. I'm actually building one out as we speak, so keep an eye on my content. I will release more details about that as we get closer, but go through a program, go through some curriculum that walks you from A to Z as to how to actually go about making the transition, doing it successfully, getting a placement and more. Part that feeds into that is mentorship and support. The best thing you can do is get the paid support from someone who's already been through it. I say paid support because you're going to invest more mind share into it. The other person is also going to invest more of their time, effort, and energy when it's paid. So don't be afraid to dip your hand in your pocket. And then also that person can act and give you clear counsel at every step. So when you're running into a hurdle, running into a roadblock, you've got someone you can count on to pull you out, to help you work through common objections, common challenges. And it's the best hack, it really is, to get from where you are right now to the best possible position, the most productive, the most successful, the most efficient in any space. The last thing I'll say is just be tenacious, right? It's not always easy to land the right role. You've got to drive high volume, good high volume of quality work, quality outreach, speaking to recruiters, speaking to people, hiring managers within the space. There's no secret, right? You've got to be committed, be tenacious, be hungry to get your name out there and to rise above the mud, rise above other people trying to achieve the same thing. When you've got 1,000 people trying to achieve one role, what are you doing to set yourself apart? So you've got to be really, really considerate about that as well. Next question, how have you adapted your sales strategy in response to the rise of remote work and virtual teams? The biggest thing here is really getting your hiring right. When you've hired the right types of people, you don't have to worry too much about whether they're in the office, whether you're in front of them or otherwise. When you've hired great people, they go out and do great work. They're hungry, they're coachable, they're tenacious, they're intelligent, they've got vigor, and they're on attack mode every single day. So the main thing I focus on is really hiring great people to make sure that they can go out there and execute under any given circumstance. The other aspect of that is trust, right? When you've hired great people, you can trust them, again, whether they're in or whether they're not in, to go and do great work. In terms of strategy, there's not really had to be a huge shift per se. We probably leaned a little bit more on business cases and the premise of ROI. When you're not able to necessarily be in front of someone all the time, you've really got to find a way to make sure that you can showcase quantifiable benefits when you're not necessarily able to bring as much presence in the room, right? You've got to really lean on to what would a CFO care about? How can I make sure I've got a business case and a ROI assessment that really stacks up? So where I can't be in the room all the time when that business case is doing the rounds around people at the customer's site, that it really stacks up, it makes a difference. And that reminds me to also lean more into video. That's where you get the opportunity to showcase passion, conviction, tonality. That's something else that I've had to lean a little bit more on, especially as it relates to sales strategy. Next question, what metrics do you focus on most when assessing your sales team's performance? There's several different metrics. The core pillars really are underpinned by my pod excellence framework, pod standing for pipeline, operational and deal excellence. So on the pipeline side of the house, we're really looking at how much net new pipeline is being generated every single month. Every single week, I should say. I'm often checking it on a daily basis. So how much net new pipeline is coming in? And then we're also looking at, on the deal side, how much business are we winning? How much business are we losing? At what pace, at what cadence, and why? We're then on the operational side studying, when do deals drop off in the cycle? Is it at discovery stage? Is it later at negotiation stage? We then want to look at that, and that then feeds into our enablement plan. Because if we're seeing deals consistently drop off early, we then want to think about our enablement, maybe to do some discovery-based training to make sure that the sellers are as equipped as possible and effective as possible, having those early conversations with customers. So we're constantly studying the sales funnel. Where are we seeing drop off? Where can we optimize? And how can we consistently get better? How do you continue learning and staying up to date in the fast-paced SaaS industry? It's really by being on the front line and consistently talking to customers. I think there's no better way. You can study the news, you can study blogs, you can do all of those types of things. But when you're speaking to customers, customers are the ones that are innovating, especially SMBs, young businesses, the businesses that have got high ambitions, high growth plans, that they're fast paced in their nature, is having consistent conversations with them. What are you building? Why are you building it? How are you seeing the landscape as you move forward? What are the threats that you're seeing? How are you then pivoting to be better placed to deal with those threats? And asking all of those questions to young, hungry, ambitious companies is a great way to stay abreast of how the industry is evolving, how things are moving, how they're tracking some of the considerations for the future. So that's really what I focus on, having a high volume of consistent conversations every single week. Next question. What does the future of SaaS sales look like to you? Look, no surprise here. The rise of AI is going to continue to be topical, and it's for great reason. I'm super, super excited about the future when being considerate about the rise of AI. I'm a big fan. I think it's great for ideation. It's great for customer research. It's great to really balance and calibrate thoughts. And so for anyone that leverages it in the right way, in the best and optimal way, I think there's a tremendous future ahead and a fantastic road for people who choose to lean in. There's still a crop of people that aren't really taking the time to invest in understanding it and how it can be helpful for them and the way that they operate their campaigns, run their business and beyond. I really advise taking some time, lean in, understand it, start to experiment with some of the tools, really focus on the ones that help with productivity and efficiency, because the most valuable resource out there for all of us is our time. It's the thing that we can't get back. So every single moment that you can optimize your time and be more efficient is something that you should embrace. And AI can play a really important and impactful role in helping us to better leverage our time and drive a better ROI on every second of time that we have. Next question. Can you talk about a memorable deal that you've closed and why it stands out? Yes, the biggest deal I closed in my career to date was for $8.5 million in total contract value. The way that was split was over 2 years, 3.5 million payable in the first year and then 5 million payable in the second year. And it was for one of the largest food delivery companies out there in the world, a public company that was growing extremely fast. The thing that stood out to me most about it was it really highlighted the importance of having a truly well-defined customer champion that's got influence, takes action, has access to power. And I had that within this particular account. This champion that I had, her name was Chloe. She just navigated the internal org incredibly well. And we got a curveball really late in this deal where they hired a procurement consultant just to interrogate this specific deal to make sure that they were getting the best possible deal and the best possible value from us. And when they brought this person in, I always remember Chloe sat in a room with me shoulder to shoulder, to combat this procurement professional and to really work on our side to really instill the value in the ROI case that we'd built out. We got the deal signed on the last working day of the year. I remember it like it was yesterday. We thought we lost the deal. I woke up at 5:30 a.m. I had hundreds of messages from our sales leadership because I hadn't actually closed the deal within our CRM, and we had to get it done by 8 a.m. that morning, which was based on the San Francisco time zone. As long as I closed it in time, we could still reconcile it in the previous financial year. And thank goodness I'm an early riser. We got the deal closed around 6 a.m. that morning, which allowed us to reconcile it in the previous financial year. And it played a massive role in the results in our end state for that particular year. So as I think back to it now, I get a bit of goosebumps because it was an incredible deal, incredible moment, and forever stand out to me as probably the most memorable deal that I closed as an individual contributor. Next question. How do you balance your personal life with the demands of a career in SaaS sales? Great question. Now, the way that I balance this is by building out a personal and a professional operating system, as I call it. So within my personal operating system, some of the core ingredients, having a really clear morning routine and evening routine. So an example of my morning routine would be to wake up. First thing I do is meditate. Then I exercise. I avoid going on my phone first time when I wake up. Get through the exercise. Then I set out a plan of action, check my phone, and then I get on with the day. So that primes the mind, conditions the mind, sets out a plan, and then we get to work. In the evening, before I go to bed, I also then meditate. I read a book. I do a digital detox for about an hour before getting into bed. I wear yellow glasses which block out all blue light. And so there's a system, right? I also have things I could get a massage every single week to look after the body. I exercise 6 times a week, and on the 7th day I go for a walk. So all of this means that my brain, my body, my spirit is just constantly optimized, and it has allowed me to operate at such a high pace every single day without relenting, and as I say, without burning out in over 7 years now. So pretty incredible. The professional side of things, it's similar, right, in terms of having a really clear system. So each day of the week is broken out in different chunks. So Monday is focused on forecast meetings and one-to-ones with my team and pipeline generation activities. Tuesday to Wednesday for me is focus on customer meetings, building brand internally, i.e. meeting with other teams and other departments within the business to make sure that we're looked after as a team and as a department, and we're on the map, so to speak. And then also making sure that I'm doing strategic work to make sure that we can continue to innovate, raise the bar with our performance and more. And then on Friday is more so about enablement, planning, and looking ahead. And so that structure across the week has meant that there's a clear structure and system that's repeatable. And that structure's really made it easy to just come into a week, be ready, be prepared, and fire on all cylinders. And then I combine that with making sure that I'm a real stickler for my time. And so when meetings come into the calendar, if it's 30 meeting minutes, I often trim it down to 20. An hour, I'll often trim it down to 40. If there's something that doesn't need a meeting, I'll say, can we just deal with this asynchronously via voice notes and video? So I'm always looking out for opportunities to optimize. And actually, when you do that, you have ultimate control over your calendar, and it sets you up for more sustainability for your career over time. The very last question is, what is one piece of advice you wish you had when you were starting your career in SaaS sales? What I would say is to lean into the premise of building frameworks and systems for repeatable success. And I would do that from day one. I would get absolutely maniacal about what do I need to do very specifically each hour of each day to drive 200% performance in whatever else I'm doing. And I would relentlessly follow that plan. And then I would tweak it when I need to. I would adjust it when I need to, but I would not move away from that plan. As mentioned, for the early parts of my career, I was solely reliant on pace, tenacity, volume, and I didn't take the time to zoom out, do the strategic work, do the thoughtful work to make sure that I was being as efficient and as effective as humanly possible with every second of my time. So I would zoom out and take the time to do that work so I could be effective from day one and fire on all cylinders. Now that concludes the Q&A for this particular episode. I hope this has been helpful in some capacity. Please do let me know your thoughts on this if you'd like to see more of these, and we can start to blend more of these into subsequent episodes. Again, I hope it's been helpful. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Keep climbing.